Welcome to Into the Depths, a new podcast from Rockwell. As SailGP moves around the world, we explore the cities that SailGP visits, and we also connect to interesting and inspiring people from the world of sport, business, entertainment, and science. Today we're joined by Andrew Cotton. Delighted to have him with us. Born in Plymouth, grew up in North Devon, a professional big wave surfer who has taken on some of the biggest challenges in surfing and also faced some pretty big challenges along the way.
Yeah.
Andrew, I'd really like to chat to you today about resilience, about data and how you approach taking on some of the biggest waves in the world. But first of all, maybe we can chat a little bit about obsession. What makes you obsessed with taking on a challenge like big wave surfing?
My obsession began with surfing, and then it just it took a natural course into big waves, and that was never intentional. I didn't really want to be a big wave surfer. I always wanted to be like a professional contest surfer. I just thought, when I was a kid, big wave surfing wasn't a profession. It was just it was a few guys that surf big waves. It would never be a job. The professional surfing was competition surfing, which is generally small waves. It's in the Olympics this year. I don't know, it just sort of changed.
For people listening who don't really know, much about surfing or big wave surfing, what defines a big wave? When does a wave become big?
That's such a good question, and I think throughout my life it's been, that's changed constantly. For me, big wave surfing now is waves of 60 feet plus. I think a big wave for any surfer or for anyone is a personal thing. And as I grew up, a big wave was 2 to 3 feet. And as my surfing journey's progressed, it's just slowly got bigger and bigger. And I think there's sort of the stage where you start calling yourself a big wave surfer, which I hate that sort of term, but is probably when you're getting comfortable in waves of 20 feet, you sort of you can call yourself a big wave surfer, whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but yeah.
Well, we almost, we should mention we almost weren't able to do this podcast because you were scheduled to go somewhere else and watch a premiere of a new film about a big wave. So tell us a little bit about that story.
I've been working with the guy, Garrett McNamara. He's kind of key to my sort of my big wave surfing career, I suppose. And he's been working on a project. It's been released on HBO. It's a 6-part series. It's called The 100 Foot Wave, and it's sort of his journey on the quest, of the 100 Foot Wave.
Fear is when we're not in the moment. For the big waves, the only thing that exists is right now.
It's the holy grail, and the 100 foot. It's I don't know. Is it? And it's about that. So yeah, I was supposed to be at the premiere of that yesterday, I think it was, but due to COVID-19, obviously the travel's not been the easiest of the sort of thing. So.
But their loss is our gain, I guess. So
yeah.
From California to Plymouth,
yeah.
But we're very happy to have you.
Yeah, no,
it's I think speaking of Garrett McNamara, he's very well known in the surfing world as breaking the record for the biggest wave surfed at Nazare in Portugal. And I know you were a part of that as well. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and maybe where your obsession, did that kind of tickle your obsession for Nazare?
Yeah, so Nazare's become sort of the mecca of big waves. And the reason it gets such crazy big waves is due to an underwater canyon. You get waves on the beach, which, they can, they've probably seen 100 foot waves there, it gets absolutely giant. It's funny because it's been there in plain sight for all these years. I suppose focus has always been Hawaii, California, Australia. It's only been the last 10 years that we've sort of been surfing Nazare. And it's Garrett that sort of pioneered the spot, And I've been lucky enough to be a small part of that.
So when was that? That he went and broke the record, and you were involved in that with him.
He was doing a project with the local council, and it was basically a project to promote Nazare and the waves, and it was a 3-year project, and by year 2 he broke the world record. So he sort of delivered early, and it was like, oh, where do we go from that? Once you break the world record, the biggest wave ever surfed, it's like, where do we go? So it was a special thing to be involved in.
What did that do to you? And your ambitions. You were very close by. You obviously very good friends.
It just sort of made me realise what was possible. Although I'd had a semi-amateur surfing career, and I'd worked in the surf industry and for some time, and I was sort of almost coming out of or giving up on the dream. To be the professional surfer or to have a career in surfing. And Garrett he's just sort of it just made me realise, what was possible, what was possible to achieve in big waves, and what was it possible to survive. It was really inspiring to be around, and it sort of lit my career. It was just, it's a dream, really.
And as someone who's been to Nazare and surfed it, explain how it feels. Tell us how do you feel when you see that swell?
When you see those hurricane swells or those big storms in the Atlantic, it's pretty. You're excited, but there's fear. There's all those sort of normal emotions that you go through. Which is it's scary. The ocean's super scary. That being there, and when the waves are that big, and it's so close to shore, it breaks right in front of a lighthouse. It's intense. It's a love-hate sort of thing, you're petrified, but you I wouldn't miss it for the world, and pushing your fear and performance and all of that, physically, mentally, it's just I love it.
And what does just for perspective, we're talking at Nazare, we're talking waves as big as 10, 15 story buildings. You're surfing at what, 80, 100 kilometers an hour?
Yeah, we reach speeds of 75 kilometers an hour, and obviously the consequences of being hit by one of those waves is petrifying, and like any, I was going to say extreme sport, but it has consequences, but it has rewards, and the rewards are for me have always outweighed the consequences, and that the feeling you get and of successfully riding some of those swells, it's insane. If I ever thought that I was out my depth or I didn't have a good feeling about it, I'm quite happy to go, okay, it's not my day, and there are days that you get that, so you kind of got to listen to your heart and your feeling and go with how you feel. I've never regretted pushing it, as hard, and getting that one more wave or making myself, even when I've been on the edge a couple of times, do I really want it, and you get a couple of waves and you're like, I definitely want it.
Andrew's incredible desire took him back to Nazare in 2017 to emulate Garrett, but it didn't exactly go to plan. So, what went wrong, Andrew?
It just wasn't my day. I broke my back on a relatively pretty big wave, it was about 60 feet. It was a compression fracture. It was traumatic, but it was the classic day. It was, for me, when that storm popped up on the forecast, I can remember looking at the numbers and the swell direction and the winds, and it was those days come in maybe once in a blue moon, once in a couple of years, they're the days that you put everything on the line, and often before I surf, I'll check the waves and I'll visualize what I want, and I was seeing these really, really perfect, clean lefts, and I mind surfed them, and I think it was my third or fourth wave of the day, We sort of went for it, and Garrett was driving the ski, so he's driving me in, and I was just like, okay, yeah, this is the one, like this is the one that I saw, and I kind of it looked like the dream wave, but it's the ocean, and it can be unpredictable, and I went from like the dream wave to like the worst wave ever, but I committed beyond commit. I committed so hard, and I was really, really critical, and when you commit that hard to a wave of that size, it's all or nothing, and unfortunately, it wasn't my day, and it hit me really, really hard, and projected me out into the flats, and so I could sort of like through the air as the wave hit me, it pushed me into the air, and it was the impact of landing on the water, and I landed bum first, and it was like falling onto concrete. So I kind of no ideas of the forces I hit with or the speed I was going, but yeah, it like instantly, I knew instantly. Like like anything in the ocean, you injure yourself, but you can't just blow the whistle and call time. Then you go. I think I had another like massive wave on the head, and like it's getting absolutely smashed. And yeah, I knew instantly I broke my back. I knew it was something not good, but I can remember like being underwater. I could like move my toes, but I was having I had a like instantly tingly, numb leg down my left leg. But I managed to get rescued, and the guys, I work with I'm really fortunate to work with some of the best guys in the world. So the rescue was all smooth to plan, and within an hour I was in hospital. So it's all good.
And when you're in that situation, I want to talk to you a bit about resilience. I assume you're a very resilient person kind of by nature, but when does that resilient character kick in? Was it literally the next morning in hospital?
I don't know, like I can remember just lying on the beach, and I was just so angry at myself, and because I knew like for me it was like, okay, right, this is quite a special swell, like the waves are absolutely giant, but I knew also it hadn't peaked yet, so it was only going to get better, and I was kind of angry at myself for committing so hard so early on in the day, and I was already thinking like, okay, right, I'm out of action, and without even knowing what the injuries were, but I was already thinking, okay, right, maybe it's going to be, so we're in October, November, December, January, I'll probably be back at the end of the season if I could probably I was already thinking about how I'm going to get back in the next swell, and if I could maybe salvage the rest of the season, maybe I could get waves in February or March, like I might be able to salvage the season and get like a few big waves, and that's just how my mind was already working. And then you're told, okay, right, it's a compression fracture, it's going to be 6 months. I was like, well, I could probably get it down to 3, do you know what I mean? The whole time, that's how I just was thinking, like, if I do this, then I'll be able to, maybe it'll be 3 months and I could be surfing by then, or, so I think when you love a sport so much, it's like there was no doubt in my mind that, because the first thing a lot of people say is, oh, you probably don't want to do it anymore, or are you going to give up now? Or are you going to, but it wasn't. It was never that. It never entered in my mind. It was just like, right, okay, right. It was an injury. You learn your lesson. You maybe approach it differently, or there was never at any point that I was thinking, oh, that was horrible, or like I never want to go near a big wave. It was just like, okay, it's unfortunate, but I can come back better or stronger. And I think it did give me an opportunity to learn loads about my body, how I train. Like, you end up taking for granted a lot of things that like basic stuff, and it was about relearning to there was so much I couldn't do for months or for quite some time. That wasn't a lot. It was like really basic exercises, trans abs, like load of hydrotherapy, walking around in the swimming pool, leg raises, like the ultimate boring training, But I had to sort of learn to absolutely love it, and I did.
And how long was that period where, probably every day you were waking up and kind of counting the days until you could get back on a board?
The injury was maybe November, I think. And then by like May or June, I think I was like at the beach where I actually learned to surf, and I was riding like a longboard and I was paddling a little bit, and I want to be like surfing really well, and it's like, and I could just about get to my feet and cruise down the line, And
So there's a bit of circularity, I guess, in going back to kind of your roots, and a bit of comfort in that, I guess.
Yeah. Again, it's an opportunity, and it made me, relit my fire for surfing, and because you just, I think sometimes, especially, you take it for granted maybe sometimes, like, and it's like, wow, like I was really enjoying like 1 foot sorting waves at home in England in the summer, it's like, wow, this is epic, like so lucky, like. So yeah, I think it was like an opportunity,
And how big was the ambition to get back to Nazare, and kind of, I guess, did you feel like you had a kind of unfinished business?
Yeah, like I think unfinished business. Yeah, like it's like we have such a weird thing, like because it was a massive fail, for me it was a massive fail, a huge injury, wipe out. It won like wipe out of the year with the WSL, and I kind of like was like, oh man, like I can't be remembered for surfing for like falling off. Like I've like put so much time and energy and effort into wanting to ride the biggest waves in the world, and I'm getting all this attention for falling off, and getting injured. Like, so like as an athlete, I was like, there's no way, like, I don't like. Why is everyone? I don't know. It's kind of like almost like it was quite frustrating, because if I'd made the wave, and it probably could have been the best wave of my life, probably not many people would have even watched it or seen it or heard of it. But because I fell off and got injured, it was like everywhere, like. So it's kind of frustrating, and that was just like, okay, well, I'm definitely don't want to be like, oh, that English dude that's broke his back at Nazare, like I wanted to, you want to be remembered for the big waves you surfed and made, like. So yeah, I suppose that was a huge motivation,
Less than a year after breaking his back, Andrew returns to Nazare.
First surf back at Nazare, 2 foot, short break. Wish me luck. I just felt scared, like intimidated. It's quite powerful, heavy. I don't know, something in my brain that whereas before I like position myself and get under it, like just go. I was a bit hesitant, because you can't be hesitant here. I was sort of asking myself the questions of, am I doing it for the right reasons? And yeah, like you love it, and it's the passion, and you're not just out there to get a video clip or a photo. You're out there because you love it, and those questions were answered really quickly, when I got back to Nazare,
Moving more generally into kind of surfing and big wave surfing, I know that you've spent a lot of time, particularly on the west coast of Ireland.
Yes, yeah.
You've been exploring, where big waves may appear or
break,
may break, part of the challenge is you kind of need to predict. You kind of need to predict that in advance, right, so that you're ready to go and surf it.
I think being in the early days of Nazare and experiencing Nazare with just like 1 or 2 of us out, excites me, and that's why I like that adventure side of looking for new waves and working out and looking at the map and thinking, oh yeah, this looks like an interesting bit of coastline, and the rock formations, and then looking at like the forecasting and the data that goes into that, and then being there on a certain day and say, okay, right, the swell's coming from the north, and it's this big. Maybe it needs to come from a bit more south. There's so many variables, and it makes massive like differences on the wave shape, style, size, and that sort of data, it takes a lot. Especially when you look at new waves, it takes a lot of time to collect. And sometimes you get lucky and you can score early, and but sometimes there's certain spots which I've been going to for years, and I've never really quite scored yet. So
in layman's terms, maybe big wave surfing 101. How does a big wave kind of break? What's the perfect formula for the perfect big wave?
The perfect formula. So we're all about what makes a wave big is usually like how the depth changes. So you want like super deep ocean going to shallow really quick. So that's why I like that. So that the coast, for example, like the coast of England. So it's the shelf is so far out. At the time that the waves get to shore, they kind of dissipate of power, and that's why when it gets big, it breaks miles out. But on the west coast of Ireland, you got like the topography. There's a couple spots where the ocean's actually really deep, quite close to shore, and then it hits like shallow rock shelves, which we would call like slabs or reefs, and that's what you're interested in, And so there's all the big wave spots have some sort of deep channel or trench or to shallow, and that and the reason why Nazare, like I think we said at the beginning, is so big is like it has like one of the deepest canyons in the world, I think, really close to shore. It comes right into the beach, and obviously the energy travels quicker in the deeper water, and then when it hits the shallow, it suddenly stops, and then you get all your power in it, and that power goes up, generally up and out.
And I guess the perception is that, sometimes you just turn up and the waves break and things are quite lucky and loose, but it's not like that, is it? There's a lot of science and data that goes on behind the scenes, to forecast where these big waves are going to break.
So I'd look at like 3 or 4 sites, like Magic Seaweed's like a surf website which does forecasting, Windguru, and there's another couple apps. And between like the 3 apps, you can sort of work out, like some are better at wave heights and others are better at wind, and you put that together. And I'd have an opinion. I'd obviously then also speak to other surfers and speak to some local people. It's all opinion based. It's forecast. It's like nothing's set in goal. But it's obviously super important. It's funny, like I know all this, like I know all the conditions and all for the stars to align and places to go. So when I see a chart like with certain numbers and directions of wind and swell, I go, okay, yeah, I know this spot will be good. And I think that's what every surfer. It doesn't have to be about big waves. It can be any size waves. They all have their secret spots or their magic places they like to go to when all the stars align and the conditions are right.
It sounds much the same as a sailing, particularly in SailGP. I think one of the interesting things is the sailors. They have so much data and kind of technology to their hands, but ultimately they have the kind of the sailor's instinct. Do you think that exists? Does it exist for you? Do you have an instinct beyond the numbers?
Yeah, totally. And you just have that instinct, and it's there's magic days, in every year there'll be 1 or 2 magic days, and they're the days that you need to make the most of, and they're the days that you've been building up to, all the year, all the last 4 years, all your life, like, because it's progression, and it's all the training I've done over the years. It ends up, it's all for a few seconds of a wave, or a ride, and that's what it is. But it all adds up, and it all makes a difference, and all counts.
And you had a magic day. Was it last year with the hurricane?
There's it was like a giant hurricane, so the swell size was there, but it was coming from a really good direction, which in Nazare makes massive difference. So if the swell is coming too west, it doesn't, the swell doesn't travel in the canyon as good, so it's like not as big. The waves are quite straight. But if it comes from the northwest, it travels down the canyon really, really fast, and it refracts. So you get like these crazy giant peaks, and it was one of those days, you know, like these crazy giant peaks, and it was like really good winds. Yeah, you don't get those conditions, you know, in the ocean that often in a lifetime.
And how big was the wave that you surfed?
It was definitely like the fastest I've ever been on a surfboard, you know, like, it's just like the endless drop. And again, like I suppose the adrenaline was so high and all those like emotions and feelings, and then I had like a bit of a dip, and I was kind of like disappointed, and I was like kind of regretting, maybe I should have got more waves, and I was kind of being hard on myself, and then one of my mates just said, you know, no, you gotta just remember how you felt that like 5 seconds after that wave. And I was like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, it's like the best wave I've ever caught, you know. I said, like, what about, like, it's that weird human thing where we always want more, you know, like, I'm especially always want to go better or bigger, and you know, so I'm always kind of disappointed in my performances, but yeah, I was kind of stoked. For me it was a special wave. So
as someone who spends so much time on the ocean, you know, probably every day you want to get out on the ocean, what have you seen regarding, you know, the impacts of kind of plastic and climate change and things like that on the ocean? I know you're very passionate about that.
I think the ocean pollution, plastic, you know, like, it's just kind of frightening, isn't it? You know, what we can do to make a difference. I actually do a couple of really good things, and it's about everyone doing their own little bit. There's a really good like sort of movement in which originated from North Devon. It was like a 2-minute beach clean. So like every time you're on the beach, like every time you get out to sea, it's just picking up a few bits, you know, like, and it's just about everyone doing their little bit, you know.
And something else that Andrew's been picking up recently is foiling. It's a bit different to what he's used to, but he's taken to it like a duck to water.
I sort of say like it's my new passion, you know, like it feels amazing because you go so fast. I thought it was the best way to ride the biggest waves, but then after doing it I realised how hard it was, and then after trying it in some bigger waves I realised how fast you go, and it just opened up a whole different spectrum of injuries and sort of scariness, you know, like, so not only were we going like the waves really big, but again just like that extra speed, which is like can be frightening. So yeah, now I just do it in small waves and I love it.
But you know, it's amazing. I think the foiling technology, you know, particularly in sailing terms, in the last kind of 10 years, it's changed the game completely, you know. And it's almost, you know, it obviously splits opinion because some people love kind of traditional keelboat sailing, you know, monohull sailing, that kind of thing. And then you have boats like the SailGP boats, which fly, you know, it's almost not sailing really, it's a different sport altogether. So I'm interested to know kind of in surfing, you know, surfing's almost, it's just made the Olympics, right? So in some ways it's kind of getting delayed validation, or, you know, as a, you know what I mean? It's getting that platform.
But it's the same, like, you're going to get, you're going to get pros, cons, but for me, like the foiling thing from a surfing point of view, and foiling in surfing, it does get bad press. People are like, oh, you know, but for me, it was just another way to enjoy the ocean, you know, and it actually makes me look at when I think about falling now, like I look at the ocean in a different way. Like I see it move differently, and I'm like, okay, right, I can literally, because I look at the energy differently and how I can link things and the speeds I can go and what I can do in it, and it just opens up another way, like to ride waves and have fun.
So do you think that is that kind of the next big frontier in big wave surfing? You know, is what's going to be the next thing that makes the headlines? Do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Like big waves, obviously, the bigger the waves, the faster they travel, and with normal surfboards that slide on water, you come into the boundaries where you cannot move. The boards can't go fast enough. So maybe the foil is that way, that we will be riding the 100-foot waves, you know, and the injuries and the technology and how you can do it safely and rescue safely is just, you know, it's a whole other game, you know, like. But it's exciting.
You strike me as someone who kind of always has a new challenge that you're thinking about. What's the next big thing for you? You know, what are you thinking about right now?
I'm always thinking about the next big swell. So that's, you know, and that for me, that's great motivation to train and be focused, is like the next biggest swell, you know. But I've also got some really exciting projects coming out. I've obviously, we just talked about the 100-foot wave series, but I've also been working on a documentary called Savage Waters, which is be coming out in October. So that's a really exciting project. It's actually a sailing one as well, where we've been sort of looking for waves. My friend's got a catamaran, and we've been sailing around the Atlantic, like hunting for waves. And we've been doing that for 5 years.
Wow.
It's like a 5-year project.
Okay.
So it was wrapped. It finished in the Azores, and that we finished filming at Christmas time. So it's in the editing bay now. So it's coming out in October. So that's pretty exciting for me as well.
And I guess finally, you know, the pandemic has been challenging for everyone. You know, someone who moves around a lot, you know, you're always ready to follow the next big swell. You know, what's the first kind of place on your list when you can? You know, where are you?
It's actually sort of taught me to be sometimes a bit happier where I am. I kind of like as an athlete or a surfer, or you know, I always think, you know, you always want to be somewhere else sometimes, and I'm always like looking at the global swell charts and thinking, oh, I want to be in Hawaii, or I want to be in California, or I want to be in Australia, and it's just been nice having those options taken off the table. You know, it was amazing. I really enjoyed just being at home and hanging out. So
Thank you, Andrew. I think that's all for today. Thanks for coming down, sharing your story, and I hope you enjoy some of the SailGP racing.
yeah, thanks very much for having me.